This is some bonus content for season 2 of Modern Masculinity. I did an interview with the actor and comedian Tom Rosenthal on the issue of male circumcision. If you haven't watched that episode already, the link is here. But this is such a complex question, and there were so many things that Tom addressed that we couldn't put into the video that I thought you guys might want to watch. So here's an extended cut, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
I'm about to be circumcised by a barber.
All right, hit your tunic up, please, fam.
This is just a trim. I can't really afford to lose any more.
This is my first interview about male circumcision.
Sure, yeah, that's unsurprising.
So, yeah, obviously, like, I've got the background I've got in that I'm from a community where people do circumcise boys, and I've also worked on an FGM campaign, so I know a bit about, like, the women's side, but you've done a whole comedy show about your circumcision.
My friends think I'm obsessed with this stuff. I'm not obsessed, but like, look at this. Look, wouldn't you be annoyed?
Whenever you say you're doing a show on circumcision, yeah, people, they quite often laugh because it is funny, and that's also why I want to do it, because I want to do funny comedy shows, and comedy about dicks is just inherently funny. But I've grown up kind of furious about this thing that happened to me. Maybe from about adolescence, when I really first started to understand what had taken place. And what I wanted to do was to try and put that story in the public domain in a kind of palatable way, because I think a lot of the guys who feel like I feel express their feelings in quite odd ways.
That is what circumcision is. It is one of the most evil things that you can do to a human being, and it was done to me.
Why is it that you were circumcised? Because there's lots of different reasons why somebody could be circumcised, be that religion.
Yeah.
So for you, what was that?
So I've asked my parents, and the 3 reasons that they gave is that my mum just thought it looked nicer. My mum had had quite a bad sexual experience with a man who wasn't circumcised because he didn't sort of look after his penis. And because they were advised that my dad is circumcised and I should be the same as him, to prevent any sort of psychological damage. I should look at his penis and feel somehow more comfortable because it had also had its foreskin removed. So, broadly, kind of like cultural, aesthetic and sort of hygienic reasons, which I sort of investigated and have decided are all bullshit. Can I say bullshit on The Guardian? Is that allowed? I feel they're bullshit.
Are you circumcised?
Yes, they're also...
Thank you. Yes, thanks, Mum.
When people say, it's a cultural practice, I've seen the show, but what are the kind of responses that you have to that kind of cultural argument that people make?
Basically, when you boil down to it, the fundamental reason that almost everyone gives for circumcising their children is just tradition. It is an extremely strong cultural bond, in my opinion, because it is quite a high price to pay to be part of a culture. So I always think of it like, if you're at university in a rugby team, or in America, you see these hazing practices where people go through something humiliating, or they'll go and get drunk, or they'll go and strip naked, and then once they've gone through that really horrible thing, the rugby team or the American university feel more bonded together. So the idea that you've given up an erogenous part of your sexual organ to be part of a culture, therefore means that you are more bound to that culture's values, and you feel more inclined to act in accordance with its laws and traditions, I guess.
How can you tell, if you haven't had a foreskin, how can you tell that something is missing?
I know that I've felt a sort of discomfort with my penis, just it's ridiculous, say on The Guardian, like knocking against my pants and stuff. I've always had that experience, it felt uncomfortable in a way that it doesn't when that bit is covered. And I have a really strong memory of, as I said in the show, getting in the bath and feeling like it hurt, like a bit of my skin is exposed in a way that it shouldn't be exposed. I just had that intuition.
Is that like when you go out commando and you don't have any, and I'm not trying to
this is the point.
But I'm like, that's the first thing that comes in my head. I'm like, if you went out without underwear on, if you're wearing rough jeans or something, you suddenly be like, something's missing. I should have put knickers on today.
So exactly. That is how it felt to me. It just feels uncomfortable, right?
No, I can't. Holy shit, that hurt!
It is actually explained why, in terms of the biomechanical functions of what a thing does. I mean, the foreskin should, to an extent, cover the glans, and some people it doesn't cover the entire glans, but the bit at the end of your glans isn't actually the most sensitive. The bit that is the most sensitive is the kind of frenular delta, which connects the skin to the glans, right? And so that's exposed in a circumcised man. So what I have basically done with the process of the show, I know I sound absolutely mad, is had a kind of private intuition that I've then researched further, and that's been confirmed by the research that I've looked into. However, there is a problem in the debate as well, in that both sides suffer from severe confirmation bias. So if someone feels emotionally against circumcision, what they're going to do is probably look into stuff that's going to confirm circumcision being a kind of problem or a harm. And if someone feels like they've been enhanced by their circumcision, there's also like ways that you can, like support that view. The point is that this is such a private thing for people. Generally, how they feel is how they then rationally view the argument. Regardless of this part of the discourse, the point is, some people feel like me. Some people feel that they should have had a choice. There is no reason to cut a child if there is no medical necessity to do that. That's true of every other part of their body. Like, it's not why shouldn't we do it? It's why should we do it?
Circumcision exposes the penile head, decreasing sensitivity over time. The tip becomes calloused, leaving cut penises with like 5% of the pleasure experienced by intact men. Pullback gang all damn day.
It's really interesting because you're talking about your own experience, but then there are so many people around the world, so many men around the world who've been circumcised. And so it must be difficult to not feel like you're, I guess, being the spokesperson, or I guess saying there's something really wrong with these guys as well. And like, how did you deal with that in making the show?
It's obviously very difficult. Like, I mean, I have circumcised friends who haven't thought about it twice. Some people are super happy with something that has happened to them, and that is kind of what trauma is about. All you can say is, when you're doing a show, this is my story, this is how I reacted to it. And I know I felt really bad, and still do, and I don't think I'm wrong to. It's not illogical what I'm feeling and thinking. But that's not to invalidate the men, lots of them who are out there, who have gone through this thing and don't see a problem with it because of the story that they tell themselves. Like, that man and me are both telling ourselves a story. He's just happy with his. And all I want to do is try and put this story out into the public domain, not to make men feel bad. Like, it's to stop men of the future having to tell themselves like a story that I, tell them myself.
It's
uncircumcised.
You talked about Sex and the City, right? And just so happened, the episode I watched last night, not looking for it, was the one about circumcision.
There was so much skin, it was like a Shar-Pei.
You're dating the guy, not the penis.
Aesthetics are important to me.
It's not what it looks like, it's what they can do with it.
Well, I don't need one that can make its own carrying case.
I felt quite guilty as a woman. I was watching it being like, yeah, I've definitely heard these conversations happen a lot, and it happens so flippantly.
Aesthetic preferences are one thing, but forcing them on a child who has no choice is a completely other thing.
Girls try to make me feel better after shows, man. They come up to me and they're like, you know what, Tom? I actually like circumcised dicks. I actually like them. It's like, all right, cool. That's not about me. That doesn't make me feel better. That's about you, Like, I like boxing. But if you're a victim of domestic abuse, I wouldn't try and console you with that fact. You know what I mean? It's not... Well, punching can be fun sometimes. It's just not a nice thing to say.
You've done your research on FGM, and like, there's people who make equivalences that are completely false. It's horrible to talk about because obviously lots of people are like, they're not the same, and they're not the same. But the reasons that some people give for FGM in certain parts of the world are the same reasons, that it's like cleaner and it looks nicer. These things sometimes go wrong and they significantly impact someone's ability to have sex. And it happens more often than not in religious communities that are quite strict, and so often have to have like religious leaders perform these things as opposed to medically trained professionals. I mean, the thing with circumcision is there's no kind of license to perform it. So anyone can theoretically perform a circumcision as long as it's under religious guidance. And so you have these cases of like imams going into schools and like just performing like botched circumcisions on like, 20, 30 kids, and then they grow up with like serious sexual implications.
It's amazing the way that you've managed to, I guess, have this conversation. But there is like this weird thing going on where people use the whole male circumcision thing in like an anti-Semitic way, or, you know, it's like an attack on groups of people. And you touch on that.
A lot of people who've put it forward as an argument historically have been using it to attack religions, like attack minorities or cultures. And I don't want to do that. I do want to protect the children of the future, but the only way we're going to do that is by doing it from within those cultures and not demonizing them. The point is that they do it to their kids out of love. Like, they think if you do it to a child, they're not going to have to experience it when they're an adult, you know, and they think, because kids are going to forget it in some way, like, they think they have to do it, and there's a religious sort of decree on them to do it.
The thing about this as an issue and a subject is that people don't talk about it, and then they feel really uncomfortable, which is why I really respected how you go out on a stage. You made me have really strong feelings about it during the show.
I mean, I'm really touched by like how you responded to it. That is the point, basically, just to make people think twice about it, while hopefully laughing a bit at how silly I am.
And what's like the overall reaction that you get from people? How now you've done it so many times. What's an average after show conversation like?
Oh man, there isn't one. I definitely do reveal quite a lot of humiliating things, so people, you know, are just like, you okay? I am. I'm fine. I'm proud of it. But when it's your family and friends, it's always embarrassing.
Well, you've done it 50 times. So.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't get any easier.